Change is nerve-wracking yet exhilarating. May it be in the places we've been, the people we've met, or the experiences we've had. We hold on to what is known and familiar. Yet, with these changes, we can discover the vast diversity of cultures, beliefs, and values that life demands us to experience outside our comfort zones. Hey Tigers, I am Denise, and welcome to another episode of Culture Shock. Having a unique talent or skill is something one should be proud of. Whether it is in the field of sports, science, or the arts, talent and skill are reflections of one's passion and perseverance. One way of honing them is through joining competitions. Competing with other people in the same field can be quite challenging. But imagine this. How about competing with people who are not of the same nationality as you? The experience of competing in international competitions can literally be a culture-shocking one, as you will meet and contend with a diverse set of people from different parts of the world with various cultures. Aside from that, you are not only battling for yourself, but you are also representing the university and the country. International competitions might feel like an otherworldly experience. However, this can also be a way for one to grow and develop their understanding of diverse cultures through interacting with other nations. This can also be a chance to show the world what a Filipino and what a Thomasian can do. In today's episode, we will talk about journeying to international competitions. To know more about their journey, here with us today are Kaela Madrunio, the former president of UST Galvanize, and Nathan Sasing from UST Singers, who have represented the university and the country in competitions and events abroad. Wow! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. How are you guys doing lately? Ate Kaela, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm feeling fine naman.
With Kuya Nathan, how are you today, Kuya?
Hey there, I'm doing really well. I hope everyone here is safe during the pandemic and thriving.
Yes, so we know that both of you came from organizations that compete abroad, namely UST Singers and UST Galvanize. Can you share with us how you got into your respective organizations? Nathan.
Sure. So first and foremost, I got into the UST Singers by seeing a poster saying that they're going to be auditions. So it was actually Sir Fidel, the conductor, who actually asked me to, not necessarily personally, but when I was under his class, he said, why don't I give it a try? So I gave it a try. And now I'm a member of around 5 years already, and I am the tenor section leader.
Wow, really steps like that, you would never know where you will go.
That's right.
With Ate Kaela, how did you get into your organization?
So in 2017, when I was in grade 11, I was originally part of the contemporary or ballet team of Galvanize. And then I auditioned for the hip-hop competing team afterwards because we had 2 auditions back then. Yun yung audition process namin sa Galva in 2016 and 2017. So there's one for the general or the broader team and then another for the competing team.
So the different aspects pala with the competing and organizations. Wow. And what was the process like before being chosen to represent your group in international competitions, Nathan?
Yeah, so being a choir, obviously we have to rehearse every single day. And when we were given the news that we were going to be competing, what was originally an already rigorous rehearsal schedule became even more rigorous. We're talking extra hours every single day. And by every single day, I do mean weekends. And studying a lot of different pieces that are not only difficult musically, but also in different languages. We had to sing something in German, Spanish, the works. But overall, it was such a rewarding experience that honestly I really miss now that we're in the pandemic.
Yeah, everybody missed face-to-face setup. Kaela, the process, what was it like before you were chosen to represent your group for international competitions?
So as I've mentioned before, meron kaming different audition for the hip-hop competing team, but for the international competition audition, it's not really an audition. So it was actually up to the coach who to choose to join the compet team. So every training is technically an audition for us.
And it's up to the coach on who
Yeah.
will be joining. Okay. And when you prepare for competitions abroad, how does your training differ from the regular routine? Let's begin with Kaela.
I think there's no really significant difference naman between preparing for regular or like local competitions and international ones. Pero I think we feel more pressure kapag mag-prepare kami for an international competition, of course, because we're not only representing our university but also our country.
Nathan, any difference between the training of regular and the international trainings?
Bouncing off what Kaela said, there's definitely some added pressure because not only are you representing UST, you're also representing the entire country. And more so, in the case of the UST Singers, we're also trying to prove the current batch is capable of doing just as well as the previous batches who have competed more times than we have and have won first place with even bigger accolades. So those top three pressures were definitely one of our driving forces. Regular rehearsals, we would focus on more songs. Like if we had an upcoming gig, we would focus more on the songs for that gig or our usual rep. For a competition, usually a competition repertoire only has around 4 to 8 songs. You're going to be rehearsing those 4 to 8 songs over and over again until you're sick of it, until you can sing it in the shower while you're asleep. So it might get a little tedious and in a sense boring, but that's definitely what's necessary so that you can compete well and make sure you win the entire competition.
It's a very tedious process, and the pressure, I can say it's a good kind of pressure.
It's a good pressure. It's not a toxic kind of pressure.
Yeah, correct. That was with your training. Now, any significant differences between the competition itself in local versus the international competitions? Kaela.
It's very different kasi you're competing against other nationalities, of course. The most memorable, I think, experience that I experienced in HK was competing against South Koreans. We competed against Bling Girls, and they were an all-girls team. I think we also had competed against a Japan team, and most of them are in grade 7 lang. And we're mostly in grade 11 and 12. And super nakaka-amaze lang kasi malayo yung gap. We still made it possible to interact with them and enjoy our experience competing against and with them.
Nationalities known for their talents, correct? So that was really a pressuring experience. With Nathan, differences between competing in local versus international competitions.
Well, personally, I haven't competed locally with the Singers. However, what I can say is that when you're already in the moment in the international competition, the difference between that and local is that when you're competing local, you're representing your university and your city. When you're competing internationally, you're representing your university, your city, your region, your country, and even your continent, you know? For example, in my case, we competed against the United States, a different continent, and like Germany, in another different continent as well. So like I said earlier, there's that added pressure because you really want to prove, not necessarily to brag to the other countries and continents, but you just want to be seen and say to them that, hey, I'm worthy of being here and I can't wait to compete with you.
I was really shocked to know that it's not just a battle between like just around Asia. It was between different continents. So it's a really, really honoring thing, diba, for you.
Definitely. And we even had competitors from Indonesia. So it was like a mixed feeling of, oh, I'm representing Southeast Asia and I'm going against Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So it's like a conflicting feeling, like, should I feel pressured or proud? Because, hey, we're kind of on the same team, but we're not.
I mean, we're all Asians here, so okay. Yeah. Okay, for the next question, ito, by competing, diba, you guys also get to travel the world, like Mr. Nathan here in Germany and Austria back in 2017, and Miss Kaela in Hong Kong last 2019. What are the things that excite you when you travel? And were there any cultural norms that have fascinated you from these countries? Nathan?
Definitely. So one of the favorite things, if not the favorite thing that I love most about travel is being in an airport. It's kind of funny. Personally, my favorite place in the world is an airport because you can go anywhere given you have a passport and money. But the greatest cultural difference would have to be, we're talking about Asia and when we went to Europe. That's literally thousands of miles away. Those are two different kinds of cultures. So for example, at the top of my head would be food. Normally we'd be having breakfast with tapsilog, puro silog, or pandesal. Although they also eat rice and stuff like that, it's not something that they always eat. They like eating bread and a lot of jam. So you can tell immediately from their food how different the culture is. There's also different kinds of architecture. The language barrier is a huge deal. You'd be lucky if your hosts were English speaking, but sometimes when they aren't, you're gonna have to rely on Google Translate to get your point across.
So speaking in English, it's rare then in other countries?
Not necessarily rare, it's very situational. Because, for example, when we stop over at, let's say Germany, we'll be going to different hosts. We'll be like two members of the choir would go to one host family. One host family may be like really good at English, conversational. Yeah. The other may not have even spoken a single word of English their entire life.
It's so language barrier. It's really
the language barrier. Some countries are better at English than others. I would say Spain is not bad at English, but in very select places in Germany and Austria, it was difficult more to converse there.
They're not really English speaking.
Not necessarily, no.
Kaela, any cultural norms that have fascinated you?
Yeah, actually, since Hong Kong is in Asia and we're in the same continent, I think there's no big difference when it comes to cultural norms.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was that it's quite hard lang to make small talk with other competitors. Korea, Japan, China, and others. Hirap lang. But we were all smiles. We were all nice to each other. It's just that it's hard to make small talks with them.
But you were able to interact with them naman.
Yes, we were able to, especially when we were practicing for the production number. So, yeah.
Similar to Filipinos, were they welcoming too?
Yes, very.
Okay. And with the food, Kaela, any difference or similarity?
Wala rin naman. We were just able to visit the McDonald's there. And I think in the Philippines back then, wala pa yung touchscreen McDonald's. Yeah, but Hong Kong had. So we were able to try the touchscreen monitor.
And that was in 2019. So in a way, they're ahead when it comes to technology. Now, representing the university and the country internationally surely puts a lot of weight on you, just like what we talked earlier about the good kind of pressure. But bearing this thought, what are the most gratifying experiences from your journey and what did you learn about yourself, Kaela?
Well, for me, the most gratifying experience from our journey would be the journey itself. Kasi it's not about winning na for us. It's about living with my teammates in one room for 4 days. It's about the joys and pains that we experienced together all throughout the journey. Kasi it was actually the first time for Galvanize and I think for any dance team in UST to represent UST in an international competition. We just spent all our time enjoying the experience and not thinking too much about the championship title or any title at that.
Agree. With Kuya Nathan, what are the most gratifying experiences that you had and any significant learning about yourself?
Definitely. So bouncing off what Kaela said, I really loved being together with the rest of the choir because we're placed in different host families often. So we get to hang out with choir members we don't normally hang out with. You know, we all have our little cliques and then we get a little mix mash and we sometimes form new friendships. We find out things about each other that we normally wouldn't have found out because we don't normally hang out together. So that was very satisfying for me because I get to learn about other people. Personally, the thing that I found out about myself is that I'm very competitive.
Wow.
and being in a competition, you better believe I got my tiger out of me. And so, pun intended. So, for example, in my house in Germany, the first competition we competed in 2017, we did not win first place. And it kind of ruined my life a little bit because you've been working so hard to reach that feeling, that satisfaction that being in first place means, hey, all of my hard work paid off. And then it didn't. I mean, can you blame anyone for feeling crushed when they lose a competition? It was at that moment that I realized I wasn't competitive enough. I'm going to step it up a notch. So the same tour, we competed in Baden, Austria, and then we won. I was like, okay, this is the level of competitiveness that I should be.
Okay.
So it's up to you to decide if that's healthy or not.
Yeah, correct.
But yeah, that's something that I learned in myself. And lastly, the best feeling that I learned about myself is that although you are competing against other people, they are also your biggest supporters when you win gold. Specifically, when the Philippines was called as the grand winner in the Baden, Austria competition, our biggest supporters, the biggest and loudest, most raucous group of people who was cheering us on was Indonesia. Literally 5 people away from us. They were cheering us on and just screaming at the top of their lungs that, hey, you guys are our neighbors, and although we didn't win first place, we're gonna be your number one supporters because we're kind of like a little bit of a family here. You know, we come from the same place almost. It was just so heartwarming to see them cheering from the stands. It's a scene that I'll never forget.
I have to agree with the insights. It's about the journey, diba? Kumbaga, winning, it's just a prize. With the competition itself, I mean, it's competition, diba? Your competitiveness, lalabas talaga yan. It's up to you how you will consider it healthy or not. So I have to say that was a very insightful discussion with you guys sharing what you have learned. And with that, here we have Thomasians who also aspire to be in your place. What inspiring message can you impart for them? Kaela.
To the Thomasians and current and former members of Galvanize who wish to experience competing abroad or even competing with your team, hopefully after this pandemic, what I can say is that the time will come for you and your team, and you only need to work hard to achieve your goal. And always remember that dancing is not all about competing or auditioning for school teams or even outside teams. It will always be about having fun and enjoying your passion with your beloved teammates. You need to always make the best out of your time also with your teammates kasi who knows, you may no longer be together, diba, after a few years, and what would be left would be your memories with them na lang. Shout out to my batchmates in Galvanize, to my fellow HP and HF competing team members, Coach Matthew, Sir Sikat, Sir Jake, Ma'am Hira, and of course the UST SHS office that time, Ma'am Pilar, Ma'am Erica, and Ma'am Jaya. This is a long delayed thank you, but thank you for giving us the opportunity to compete together and represent UST and the Philippines in the international competition. And that is one memorable moment that I would love to reminisce and will always cherish forever. Thank you po.
I love how Ate Kaela never forgets the people that were the family that were part of her journey. Kuya Nathan, any inspiring message that you can impart to our Thomasians?
Yeah, to the aspiring UST singers that will hopefully audition once the pandemic ends, the one piece of advice that I would like to offer you is that you cannot do everything alone. You always have to rely on your teammates, and you always have to listen to them because we are a choir. You're not competing with anyone in here. You gotta work together as a team because it's only through that kind of being a well-oiled, functional machine will you be able to create beautiful music that you bond over. And being together, you create so many beautiful memories that you're gonna be talking about once you come back from competition. You'll be reminiscing of the competition because you spent it together. You basically spent the summer together as a cute little group of misfits. Like what Kaela said, greeting her teammates, I would also like to do the same to those who are watching. Hello to my batch at UST Singers, to my closest friends, and of course to the rest of the choir. I hope you guys are being safe and healthy. And of course to our conductor, Sir Fidel, a special shout out to you because if it wasn't for you, none of us in the choir will be able to say that, hey, I represented the Philippines back in 2017 and we got to take home the trophy. So special shout out to you, Sir Fidel. I hope you're doing well, healthy, active, and safe.
Oh my gosh. Without these people, I would agree, diba, yung mga co-org ko rin and such, they really made the experience for me. A lot of these people, yung mga memories, yun talaga yung maaalala natin. And with that, we can definitely say that what a journey it has been, both for Kaela and Nathan. From trainings, not to competing and representing the country, to interacting with different nations, your journey only proves how far you both have to show off your talents to the country and to the world. But our show does not stop here, Tigers. Now that our guests have shared their experiences, let us know more about how they handle these new experiences in Culture Shock's brand new segment, Take 5. In this segment, our guests will share with us top 5 things or important tips about their culture shock experience. What are your tips on how to prepare for a global competition? Let's start with Nathan.
So first and foremost, listen to your boss or your conductor or your coach, because they're the ones who have the most amount of experience out of everyone in your organization. You always got to remember that they're there and that they'll always be by your side through ups and downs.
Learn to love your competition piece or routine.
Next is listen and coordinate with your teammates, and do not compete with them because you're all aiming for one thing collectively.
Trust your teammates and coach.
Know your worth, because you're there for a reason. It was not an accident. People trust you, people expect something of you, and of course, to always do your part.
Thank you so much for those insightful tips that I'm sure a lot of the Thomasians will get something for. Thank you so much, Kaela Madrunio from UST Galvanize and Nathan Sasing from UST Singers. We are so grateful to have you here with us today and for sharing your culture shocking experiences. And we hope to see you again the very, very soonest. Our guests today are only a few of the many people who prove courage in the face of change. From local to international, representing the university and the country among hundreds of nations is nerve-wracking. But their passion and grit to perform shone brighter than their fear. And that's it for today. To see more of our future episodes, you can like our Facebook page, UST Tiger TV. You can also give us a follow on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok via @USTigerTV. Thanks for tuning in today's episode of Culture Shock, everybody. I am Denise, your host for this show that embraces change and new experiences. Culture Shock!